The question is, was Joker 2 as good as Joker 1?
No.
No, I would agree with you. I'd say it was okay.
Now here's the thing. Before we went into this film, there were all these mixed reviews. Some people said, oh, I love it. Some people said, no, I couldn't stand it. And we actually saw that in the cinema, in the viewing, because quite a lot of people were in that cinema. It was pretty packed.
Yeah,
actually.
I'd say 80% filled, but I would say by the end it was about 65. 10 to 15% of the audience left halfway through, or even 3/4 way through the movie.
Yes.
That is insane.
But the people who stayed were rapt. This was a Marmite film. Either you really liked it, you enjoyed it, or it was bringing you in, or it wasn't. And I wasn't expecting to agree with the reviewers so much in saying that.
There were aspects I enjoyed, but others which just didn't fit right. I think Lady Gaga was actually pretty decent in this movie, and Joaquin Phoenix gave a solid performance as well. I will say this, it's probably the biggest waste of a $200 million budget I've ever seen in my life. This film should have, could have, and really ought to have been $100 million, potentially even 75. Was it all spent on the musical numbers? Because they weren't even that bombastic.
Or it was spent on the cast. In getting Gaga
you think
and getting
so?
Joaquin back, because it was meant to be a one and done.
It just seems ridiculous that this film cost $200 million. Now, a film is not as good as its budget. That has been proven many times over.
We knew coming into it there were going to be musical numbers. I wasn't expecting the sheer amount of musical numbers, and I think that's one of the reasons why this is a love-hate, because a lot of people do not mess with musicals.
About 12 instances of the lead characters singing at certain points in the movie.
And it did improve the flow in some sense of the story, and it added to the story. You understood the characters better from the way they were singing and what they were singing.
Maybe a little bit.
Look, when it comes to this film, I don't know whether I'm going to rewatch it. With the Joker 1, the reason I didn't want to rewatch it was because it was so heavy.
Yeah.
This one had that heaviness, but not to the same extent.
And it's not the film I thought it would be. I wanted it to be something more, something extra, and it almost felt like it was pissing on what the first film was in some ways. But in my view, they did that with the way they ended this movie. Not with the actual final scene, but in the penultimate scene.
Yes.
Right? In the scene with Harley and the way she was handled with the Joker and his and her story, it just felt wrong in some way from what we know the Joker and Harley to be. But then by the end of it, it went in a direction which I definitely thought it would once a certain character showed up for the first time.
Me too.
We both looked at each other when this particular character showed up smiling on screen, and we went,
There was this buzz between our brains.
he looks an awful lot familiar to another actor who played this other character in another version of the Batman universe of some kind. And you're right at the end, you go, oh shit. If you know, you know. The Joker may have been a copycat of the original Joker, and Joaquin Phoenix is the original Joker, setting up the origin story for the real Joker who will become the megalomaniac nutjob that is Batman's arch nemesis.
Yeah, and to be honest, as we were watching it, as the film was continuing, I saw it playing out before it happened on screen.
Yeah.
And I must admit, I love it when that happens.
Yeah, I know, because you're like, hey, I see it. I see what they're gonna do, and then they did it. I think 99% of people probably wouldn't have seen that because most people aren't as logged in and into this type of stuff, but that was an aspect which I didn't like and then I liked. So you can change your mind on this movie as you're going through it almost.
Yeah.
Because there were moments where I thought, I like that, and I like that, and then I ended up not liking where it went. And there are other points where I said, I don't like that. And then I was kind of pleased with how they finished that off.
It's a mixed bag.
And it's nowhere near as good as Joker 1, which was always gonna be a tough bar, but I think for certain there are gonna be some heavy memes coming out of this movie. There really, really will be.